We know mortgage holders and renters and ordinary workers for the past few years have repeatedly been punished by an inflation crisis caused by corporate price gouging. Every time the RBA rocked up to put up interest rates, and every time mortgage rates went up, and every time people kept paying more and more and more, being forced to pay for an inflation crisis caused by corporate price gouging, this screwed over ordinary workers. But what we always knew, and a lot of people in Australia knew, was it wasn't workers causing this inflation crisis, it was corporate price gouging. And I can't think of a better example than the market duopoly of Coles and Woolworths driving up prices and screwing over ordinary workers. Now, it's remarkable that we have an economic and political system that every time the gas corporations jacked up their prices, every time Coles and Woolworths jacked up their prices and drove the inflation crisis, the people that were punished for it were the people with mortgages and screwed over by the RBA's interest rate increases. This is hardly fair that basically the economic plan was, oh no, Coles and Woolworths are using their market power to jack up prices. The way we're going to fix this from the perspective of the political establishment is we're going to make mortgage holders force them into financial stress by driving up mortgage rates and reducing their spending power. But really what that means, in practical terms, is pushing them into poverty. Last year, Coles made a $1.1 billion profit. Woolworths, $1.62 billion. Now, what we know from the evidence around the world is those are the highest rates of profitability for supermarkets in the developed world. But we have a political and economic system that allows them to get away with that scot-free, while at the same time we have a political and economic system that punishes mortgage holders and renters by jacking up interest rates and pushing them into poverty. Now, the government is aware of this. The government is aware of the corporate price gouging. The government is aware of the fact that the inflation crisis is being driven by gas corporations, supermarkets and other big corporations like the banks, for instance, making a $10 billion profit off the back of mortgage holders paying more on their mortgages. They're aware that that's where the inflation crisis has been caused. But rather than crack down on that, they've said, you know what? Oh, well, we'll look at it, but we're not really sure what we're going to do. All of a sudden, when it's those big, powerful corporations like Coles and Woolworths, suddenly the government is powerless. But whenever it's ordinary people, whenever it's people doing it tough, all of a sudden, well, we can crack down on them. And I think it's pretty clear that at a very basic level that there are things that we can do right now to crack down on Coles and Woolworths, but at a broader level we can also start looking at corporate super profits. And at the very least, why not introduce a corporate super profits tax?
Authorised by J. McCall, Australian Greens, Canberra.